The Grand Galactic Hall was older than memory. Built from black stone that seemed to drink light, it rose like a mountain in the void. Every race of the galaxy had walked its long silver floors. Every ruler had stood beneath its golden banners. It was the heart of power, the throne of the Dominion. Here, every species bowed. Here, every voice was silenced. No one had ever dared stand tall. That day, the chamber was filled with tens of thousands of delegates. Their shimmering robes, jeweled crowns, and plated armor reflected the pale glow of the star lamps above. The voices of countless translators whispered through the air, carrying every word in 100 languages. On the high dais sat the Dominion overseers. Ancient, towering beings with long silver masks that hid their faces. They spoke with voices that shook the floor. To them, all other species were nothing, servants, tools, slaves. One by one, representatives of the galaxy's great civilizations had bowed before them. The reptilian Kerax bent low until their scales scraped the floor. The insectoid Vairi pressed their antennae flat in submission. Even the proud WYR, who once swore never to kneel, lay trembling on their knees. The message was simple: kneel or be erased. The overseer's gaze turned at last to the humans. The cameras followed the lone human ambassador as he walked forward, boots echoing on the silver stone. He wore no crown, no jewels, no armor, only the plain dark uniform of Earth's fleet. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. Billions watched across the galaxy. On every colony, in every starport, in every hidden outpost, screens flickered with the same image. The moment humanity's fate would be decided. Humanity of Earth, the overseer's voice thundered. Kneel before the Dominion. Bend, as all others bend. Submit, or be destroyed. The silence was deep enough to crush bone. The human did not bend. He did not kneel. He stood tall in the shadow of giants. His hands did not shake. His voice did not break. He whispered only one word. Never. The word echoed. The translators repeated it in 100 alien tongues. Never. 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 Shock rippled through the chamber. Delegates gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others hissed in horror. No one had ever dared refuse. On the far worlds of the Dominion, slaves whispered the word in secret. Never. On warships orbiting dead suns, soldiers repeated it under their breath. Never. The word spread like fire through dry grass. Humans refused. And the galaxy trembled. The overseers' masks turned slowly, their silver eyes cold. Their voices thundered again, shaking dust from the high ceiling. Then Earth is marked. A rebellious world. A danger to order. A threat to the galaxy itself. The Dominion's judgment was spoken. To be named rebellious was death. Entire civilizations had been erased for less. In the chamber, alien representatives whispered to each other, their voices sharp with fear and mockery. The humans are fools. They will burn within a cycle. They think courage will save them. It never does. The Vairi delegate clicked his mandibles in amusement. The Dominion will crush them. Their skies will burn. The reptilian Kerax flicked his tongue. They should have bowed. No race survives rebellion. Even the timid traders of the Arun, who once smiled kindly at humans, turned away. None wished to be seen as friends of a doomed race. But the human ambassador only turned his back and walked out. No bow. No final words. His silence was louder than thunder. On Earth, the reaction was fierce. In the great cities, people filled the streets. Some shouted in fear, begging their leaders to reconsider. Others lifted banners of pride, chanting the word, never. In military command centers, grim-faced generals prepared for the inevitable. Fleets were moved. Defenses were raised. Colonies were warned. Humanity had just declared war against the greatest power the galaxy had ever known. And yet, no one begged for mercy. No one sent apologies. No one bowed. Humanity knew war was coming. And still, they refused surrender. The first sign came days later. Dominion warships, dark and massive, appeared at the edge of the solar system. They did not speak. They did not bargain. Their presence was the answer to Earth's defiance. All across the galaxy, species tuned in to the live feeds. Alien leaders sat in silence. Some felt pity. Some felt satisfaction. Most felt nothing at all. Humans are brave, one delegate whispered. But bravery has no shield. On the frozen moons of Titan, soldiers armed themselves. On Mars, engineers worked through the night, building weapons from scrap. On Earth, families gathered in shelters, staring at the skies. Fear was real. Death was certain. But the word still echoed in their hearts. Never. For the Dominion, it was just another rebellion to crush. But for the galaxy, something had changed. No race had ever dared refuse in the Grand Hall. No one had ever looked into the eyes of the overseers and said no. And though the galaxy mocked them, though alien voices called them doomed, whispers still spread in hidden corners. Whispers of defiance. Whispers of hope. Because when the humans refused to kneel, they did more than doom themselves. They lit a fire. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The Dominion did not wait. The day after Earth's refusal, fleets of warships began to move. Black as night, forged from metals unknown, they slid from hidden docks across half the galaxy. Their engines burned like suns, and their shadows fell across entire systems. To most species, the sight of Dominion fleets meant the end. Worlds surrendered at once. Others begged for mercy. Some even destroyed themselves rather than face what came after. But this time, things were different. This time, their target was not a weak colony. This time, it was humanity. The first attack came above Mars. The sky over the red planet turned to fire as Dominion destroyers broke orbit. Their weapons split the thin atmosphere with white beams that melted steel like wax. Human outposts shuddered under the bombardment. Glass domes shattered. Towers fell into dust. In the bunkers below, civilians screamed. Soldiers clutched their rifles, knowing they could not match the firepower above. Fear spread like poison. For a moment, even the bravest believed it was over. But then, something unexpected happened. Human ships rose to meet the enemy. They were smaller, weaker, patched with armor that looked like scrap. No one believed they would last more than minutes. The Dominion commanders laughed as they ordered the charge. Yet the humans did not fight as others did. They did not line up in neat ranks to be slaughtered. They darted, twisted, vanished into asteroid belts. They planted traps in empty space. They jammed Dominion sensors with false signals. And when the first Dominion battleship crossed the orbit of Phobos, it vanished in a sudden bloom of light. An asteroid, hollowed out and packed with explosives, had been dragged into place weeks earlier. The humans had known war would come. They had prepared. Billions across the galaxy watched the live feed in shock. For the first time in memory, a Dominion ship was gone. Not captured, not surrendered, destroyed. On the Overseer's flagships, fury boiled. Reckless insects, one hissed. They dare strike us. But the humans were not done. On Titan, as Dominion troops descended, the methane seas erupted. Hidden mines, disguised as harmless rocks, exploded beneath their transports. Entire squads vanished beneath waves of liquid fire. On Mars, engineers who once built farms and water systems turned their skills to war. They hacked Dominion communication lines, turning orders into chaos. Dominion cruisers fired on each other, thinking enemies were near. It was not victory. Not yet. The humans lost cities, soldiers, and families. They bled heavily. But they did not break. And when the smoke cleared, the impossible truth spread. The first Dominion fleet had not crushed humanity. It limped away, scarred and humiliated. Across the galaxy, whispers rose. In the slave pits of the Veyri, workers risked their lives to repeat the tale. The humans fight. The humans hurt them. On the ice worlds of the WAR, exiled warriors grinned for the first time in centuries. Even the timid Arun traders, who had mocked humanity, now spoke in quiet awe. But others scoffed. They only won a small skirmish, said the Kerax delegate. The Dominion will return with 10 times the force. They cannot hold forever, hissed another. No one can. Still, the whispers grew. For every voice of doubt, another voice asked, if humans can fight, why not us? On Earth, leaders gathered in dim command centers. Screens flickered with reports, victories mixed with heavy losses. The generals spoke with grim pride. They came expecting us to kneel, one said. We made them bleed instead. But the cost was clear. Colonies were damaged. Thousands were dead. Resources were stretched thin. The Dominion was not defeated, it was only angered. The human ambassador, the same who had refused in the Grand Hall, spoke softly to his people. This is only the beginning. They will come again. Stronger. But remember this, Dominion warships are not invincible. They can burn. And if they can burn, they can fall. The Dominion High Council gathered in fury. Never before had their fleets been resisted like this. Crush them, one overseer demanded. Erase them from the stars, said another. They must serve as an example. And so orders were given. A new fleet, larger and more powerful than the last, was prepared. Entire sectors poured their ships into the cause. They would not simply punish humanity this time. They would annihilate them. But already, something had changed. The galaxy had seen it. The recordings spread faster than Dominion sensors could stop them. Images of burning warships, of human soldiers standing against impossible odds, of fleets limping away in shame, these could not be erased. On hidden worlds, rebels took heart. On enslaved planets, prisoners lifted their heads. On forgotten stations, old warriors polished their blades. The humans had not won. But they had survived. And in surviving, they had done the unthinkable. They had broken the myth of Dominion invincibility. Above the smoking ruins of Mars, a single human fleet drifted, battered but alive. The stars burned cold around them. Engines flickered. Weapons ran low. But the soldiers still stood at their posts. They knew the Dominion would come again. Stronger. Crueler. But in their hearts, fear was not the only thing burning. There was pride. And there was defiance. Because humanity had shown the galaxy a truth no overseer could erase. The Dominion could be hurt. And if it could be hurt, it could be beaten. The Dominion fleets had retreated, but the war was far from over. Above Mars, wreckage still floated, broken ships, shattered stations, the remains of homes that would never be rebuilt. Titan's methane seas still boiled with fire from the battle. Families mourned. Soldiers buried their dead. And yet, something strange began to spread across the galaxy. Whispers. Hook, 5 to 7 minutes suspense. In the slave mines of the Veyri, where workers had spent centuries digging ore for Dominion forges, one voice broke the silence. Did you hear? The humans fought them. They survived. The guards laughed and struck him down. But the whisper did not die. Another picked it up. Then another. Until the mines themselves seemed to hum with it. On the frozen world of Rel, exiled WA warriors sharpened their blades in secret. They had lost everything long ago, crushed by the Dominion's armies. But when they saw the human recordings, Dominion warships burning, overseer fleets limping away, the fire in their eyes returned. And in the markets of the Arun traders, merchants gathered in shadowed alleys. They had mocked humans before. Now they asked each other, if Earth can resist, perhaps trade with them might be worth the risk. The Dominion tried to silence it. Their censors erased the broadcasts. Their soldiers executed those who spoke too boldly. Their propaganda flooded the galaxy. Humanity is savage. Humanity is doomed. The Dominion will prevail. But the whispers were louder. On Earth, the leaders knew what was happening. Messages, faint and secret, began to arrive from distant worlds. Not all were friendly. Some carried warnings, you cannot win. Surrender while you can. Others carried pleas, help us. Show us how you fight. In hidden rooms deep beneath Earth cities, human commanders studied these messages. They argued. Some said, we cannot save others, we can barely defend ourselves. Others said, if we stand alone, we will die alone. The ambassador who had once stood tall in the Grand Hall spoke again. His words were calm, but every syllable burned with steel. The Dominion has ruled by fear for 1,000 years. We broke that fear in one battle. Every day we survive, more will rise. The question is not if we fight alone. The question is how many will join us before the end. The humans had little, but they made use of everything. Engineers scavenged Dominion wrecks, learning to twist alien technology into their own machines. Soldiers trained in tactics no other race had ever used: guerrilla strikes, sabotage, deception. Civilians volunteered, turning freighters into warships, turning miners into pilots. And then came the first defectors. A small crew of WIR fighters, scarred and half-starved, appeared at the edge of human space. Their ship was barely holding together. They sent only one message: teach us. Soon after, an Arun smuggler slipped through Dominion patrols, carrying crates of weapons stolen from overseer stockpiles. His price was simple: protection for his family. Even a few very rebels escaped their mines, bringing knowledge of Dominion supply routes. One by one, they came. Not many. Not enough to change the war. But enough to show the truth: the galaxy was watching. The Dominion saw this too. Their anger burned hotter with each report of unrest. Fleets doubled their patrols. Overseers ordered executions across rebellious sectors. Entire villages were wiped out for whispering the word never. But the harder they struck, the louder the whispers became. On the gas world of Felis, slaves carved the word into the walls of their prisons. On ruined moons, children played at being humans, standing tall while others pretended to be overseers. On hidden channels, secret songs spread: songs of earth, songs of defiance. Still, the danger was real. The Dominion gathered a second fleet larger than the first, stronger, hungrier. It moved slowly but with purpose, crushing everything in its path as it marched toward Earth. On the dark bridges of their warships, overseers hissed in fury. We will burn their world until nothing remains. We will erase their name from the stars. But in their cold hearts, a shadow lingered. For the first time, they had been resisted. For the first time, their enemies did not bow. On Earth, soldiers stood watch beneath scarred skies. Families rebuilt shattered colonies with trembling hands. Engineers worked without sleep, turning wreckage into hope. And though fear was heavy, it was not alone. There was something else now, something the Dominion had not expected. Belief. Belief that humans could endure. Belief that others might follow. Belief that one spark could start a fire that even 1,000 fleets could not put out. Above the ruined fields of Mars, a single human pilot whispered into the comms as he watched the stars. They will come again. Another voice answered, firm and steady. Let them. And across the galaxy, the whispers spread still. Did you hear? The humans fight. They bleed, but they do not bow. They said never. The Dominion's shadow still stretched wide, but cracks had begun to form. And from those cracks, light was seeping through. The galaxy was changing. Slowly. Quietly. And it had started with humanity's refusal to kneel. The stars darkened with warships. For weeks, reports had warned of it. Dominion fleets were moving, not in small strikes but in numbers no one had seen in centuries. Entire sectors were stripped of ships. Patrols vanished from borders. Slave worlds were left unguarded. All power, all strength, was being gathered for one purpose: the destruction of Earth. Hook, 5 to 7 minutes suspense. Above the shattered colonies of Mars, human soldiers watched the sky through cracked helmets and bloodshot eyes. They had survived the first battles, but barely. Engines coughed, weapons overheated, food grew scarce. And then, the message came: the Dominion is sending everything. The largest fleet in history. They will erase humanity in a single blow. The galaxy listened in silence. Billions tuned to hidden channels, waiting. Some prayed for Earth's survival. Others prayed for its end. But all wondered the same thing: would humanity finally kneel, or would they drag the galaxy into chaos? The Dominion fleet arrived in a wave of fire. Thousands of warships, their hulls black as obsidian, slid into human space. Their engines roared like storms. Their weapons glowed with the light of dying suns. At the heart of the fleet was the Eternal Crown, the greatest battleship the galaxy had ever seen. It was said no world could survive its guns. Across the galaxy, hope died. They cannot win, whispered the Kerax delegate. It will be over in hours, said the Veyri. Earth will be ash, laughed the overseers. But humanity was ready. Every colony, every ship, every hidden station had been preparing for this day. Asteroids were wired with explosives. Moons were laced with hidden cannons. Fleets that looked broken and small drifted silently in the dark, waiting. On Earth itself, cities went dark, vanishing beneath camouflage shields. Millions of civilians hid underground, while soldiers loaded the last of their weapons. Engineers checked systems that had been built in secret gravity traps, hacking nets, strange devices no alien had ever seen before. The humans did not expect to win, but they expected to make the Dominion bleed. The battle began above Jupiter. The Dominion fleet surged forward, confident, unstoppable. Their destroyers swept through the human defenses like blades through paper. Dozens of human ships burned in the first hour. But then the traps were sprung. From the asteroid belt, hidden mines ignited, tearing apart entire wings of Dominion fighters. Gravity nets pulled cruisers off course, dragging them into Jupiter's storms where they were swallowed whole. Human hackers, working from bunkers on Titan, slipped viruses into Dominion systems. Whole ships turned blind, weapons refusing to fire. And still the humans pressed forward. Their smaller ships darted between giants, striking at weak points, retreating before they could be caught. For every human ship destroyed, a Dominion cruiser fell. Billions across the galaxy watched the war feeds in disbelief. The humans are holding them. They're not just surviving, they're fighting. Is this truly possible? On slave worlds, workers wept as they watched overseer ships explode. On distant stations, rebels roared with joy. Even the proud WIR, long broken, lifted their banners once more. But the Dominion would not yield. The Eternal Crown moved into position, its cannons glowing. Entire human fleets burned beneath its fire. Colonies shuddered as moons cracked under the force of its weapons. It seemed humanity's defiance had reached its end. And then came the moment that changed everything. A single human fleet, battered and bleeding, dived straight at the Eternal Crown. Their ships were falling apart. Engines sputtered. Weapons barely fired. Everyone thought they were running to their deaths. But they carried something new, something only humans would dare attempt. A weapon not of fire, but of gravity. Engineers had spent years designing it in secret, studying Dominion technology, twisting it into something the overseers had never imagined. At the heart of the fleet was a device that bent space itself. As the humans charged, they activated it. The stars twisted. Light bent. And the Eternal Crown, the ship that had never been defeated, was pulled into its own gravity well. Its engines screamed. Its cannons flared. But it could not escape. Before the eyes of billions, the greatest battleship in the galaxy cracked apart. Its glowing wreckage tumbled across a dead moon, burning like a second sun. The galaxy froze. For the first time in living memory, the Dominion's supreme weapon was gone. In the Grand Hall, overseers rose in fury, their silver masks trembling. Alien delegates gasped in disbelief. Slaves across 100 worlds lifted their fists in secret celebration. And above Jupiter, the battered human fleet drifted, scarred but alive. The Dominion was not defeated. Their fleets still outnumbered humanity 100 to 1. Their armies still held half the galaxy. But something greater had been broken. The myth of Dominion invincibility. On Earth, people wept not only for those lost, but for what had been won. They had stood against the greatest armada ever assembled. And though many had died, though cities burned and colonies bled, humanity still stood. And across the galaxy, the whispers became shouts. The Dominion can be hurt. The humans proved it. The crown is broken. The overseers raged, but rage could not hide the truth. They had thrown everything at Earth. They had brought their might, their pride, their greatest weapon. And still, humanity had not knelt. The galaxy was changing. And it would never be the same again. The wreckage of the Eternal Crown still drifted above the dead moon. Its burning fragments painted the darkness with fire, a scar across the stars. For 1,000 years, the crown had been the Dominion's pride, the ship no one dared challenge, the weapon that had crushed empires. Now it was gone. Broken. Shattered. And the galaxy could not stop staring. Hook, 5 to 7 minutes suspense. On slave worlds, entire camps stopped their labor. Shackled workers lifted their heads, whispering in awe. The humans destroyed it. The crown is no more. In the hidden halls of rebels, leaders slammed their fists against tables, eyes blazing. If the crown can burn, so can the Dominion. Even in the Grand Hall itself, where overseers ruled with iron and silence, fear rippled behind the silver masks. For the first time in living memory, the Dominion had bled. And the galaxy would never forget the sight. The overseers tried to deny it. Their propaganda screamed across every channel. The humans tricked you. The crown still lives. Humanity is doomed. But no one believed them. Too many had seen the flames with their own eyes. Too many ships had carried the recordings. The overseers silenced their own commanders. Those who had failed at Jupiter were executed without trial. Their corpses hung in orbit as a warning. But instead of fear, the sight spread anger. Soldiers began to whisper. Admirals began to doubt. The Dominion's iron mask had cracked. And everywhere, rebellions began. On the ice mines of Veyri, slaves rose with stolen tools, cutting down their guards. They painted one word on the walls in blood and dust: never. On the jungle world of Haruan, the exiled WYR stormed their old cities, tearing down Dominion statues and raising their banners once more. Their war cries echoed across the stars. Even the timid Arun traders, who once bowed and smiled, now refused to pay Dominion taxes. Their ships carried supplies to Earth in secret, hoping the humans could protect them. One spark had become a fire. On Earth, leaders gathered in war councils. The room was filled with maps of stars, flashing reports, desperate requests from distant worlds. More are rising every day, said a general. But they are weak. They cannot stand without us. They don't want rulers, the ambassador replied softly. They want hope. And that's what we gave them. He stood before the council, the same man who had once refused to kneel in the Grand Hall. His eyes were tired, his voice rough, but his words carried weight. If we fight only for Earth, Earth will fall. If we fight for freedom, the galaxy will rise beside us. That is how we win. And so humanity changed its war. No longer did they only defend their colonies. Now they struck outward, not as conquerors, but as liberators. Human fleets slipped into rebel space, bringing weapons and training. Engineers taught others how to hack Dominion systems. Pilots shared tactics of ambush and deception. Everywhere humans went, whispers followed. The ones who said never. The ones who broke the crown. The ones who will not bow. The galaxy was beginning to believe. But the cost was high. Dominion fleets still struck back with fury. Cities burned. Colonies fell. Millions died screaming beneath the overseers' guns. Humanity bled with every step forward. And still, they did not stop. Because with every loss, more allies rose. With every death, more voices joined the chorus. The Dominion could kill thousands, but the whispers reached millions. In the overseers' chambers, fear turned to rage. They spread like infection, one hissed. They twist the weak into traitors, said another. They will bring the galaxy to ruin. But behind their silver masks, doubt grew. For centuries, their rule had been unquestioned. Their fleets had been untouchable. Now, they were hunted, harried, bled by a species they had once dismissed as nothing. The overseers ordered more purges. Entire systems were burned to ash. Planets were left lifeless, their skies filled with smoke. But the harder they struck, the louder the cries of rebellion became. The galaxy had seen the truth. The crown was gone. And if the crown could fall, so could the Dominion. On the edge of Earth's colonies, a human fleet prepared for another battle. Their ships were scarred, patched with scrap and stolen parts. Their crews were exhausted, running on hope more than fuel. But their eyes burned with fire. Across the comms, a pilot whispered the word that had become their vow. Never. And from ship to ship, voice to voice, the answer came back. Never. 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 It echoed through the fleet, through the stars, through the hearts of rebels across the galaxy. The Dominion was still vast. Its fleets still covered half the galaxy. Its armies still numbered in the trillions. But the myth of its power had shattered. The crown was broken. The galaxy was rising. And Earth was no longer fighting alone. The war had lasted years. Worlds had burned, fleets had shattered, and entire civilizations had vanished into smoke. But now, for the first time in living memory, the Dominion itself trembled. Hook, 5 to 7 minutes suspense. The Grand Hall was silent. The overseers, those faceless rulers who had once commanded the stars with a whisper, sat frozen upon their high thrones. Their silver masks gleamed under the cold lights, but behind them, fear pulsed like a heartbeat. Because the impossible had happened. Human warships, scarred but unbroken, now hung in orbit above the Dominion's capital. Across the galaxy, rebels had risen in fire and blood, cutting supply lines, breaking chains, tearing banners from city walls. The overseers' fleets were scattered. Their soldiers deserted. Their people whispered treason. And at the heart of it all stood humanity, the race that had once been mocked as weak, backward, unworthy. The race that had refused to kneel. The humans had not come to conquer. They had not come to rule. But they had come to end it. The last battle had raged for days. Dominion dreadnoughts blocked the skies. Their superweapons carved through moons and asteroids. Yet the humans fought with a fury no machine could match. Side by side with rebels, they struck again and again, bleeding, burning, refusing to fall. And then it happened. The Dominion flagship, the New Crown, built to replace the one humanity had destroyed, exploded in flames. Its wreckage rained across the capital world like fire from the heavens. The Overseer's symbol of eternal rule was gone. The galaxy held its breath. In the ruins of the Grand Hall, the human ambassador walked forward. His uniform was torn, his body weary, but his voice was steady. Billions watched through secret transmissions and rebel broadcasts. "You said kneel or die," he said. His words echoed through the chamber. "We chose neither. We chose to fight. And now, Dominion, you are finished." The overseers hissed behind their masks. Some begged for mercy. Others promised vengeance. But humanity did not strike them down. Instead, the ambassador turned to the gathered leaders of rebel worlds, the WYR, the Arun, the broken slave races, the exiled clans. He raised his hand and declared, "The age of kneeling is over. The galaxy will not be ruled by fear again. Not by them. Not by us. From this day, you choose your own path." The hall erupted in voices. Some wept. Some shouted. Some fell to their knees, not in submission, but in relief. For the first time in 1,000 years, freedom was not a dream. It was real. But freedom came with cost. The galaxy was scarred. Planets lay in ruins. Millions had died. Entire species had been erased by Dominion purges. And now, without the iron hand of the overseers, chaos threatened to spread. Many begged humanity to lead. To become the new rulers. To wear the crown that had been shattered. But the ambassador shook his head. "We will not become what we destroyed. We will stand beside you, not above you. We will fight for peace, not power. The galaxy belongs to all of us." And so it began. Not an empire. Not a dominion. But something new. Across the stars, old chains were broken. Slave worlds became free states. Traders who once bowed in silence now spoke in their own voices. Armies that once fought for overseers now guarded their own people. Rebels turned into leaders. Exiles turned into citizens. And humanity, blooded but unbowed, became the bridge that held it all together. Still, not all was peace. Remnants of the Dominion lurked in the dark. Admirals who refused surrender fled with stolen fleets. Overseers who had escaped their thrones whispered promises of return. Wars still burned in shadows. But the difference was clear. This time, the galaxy did not kneel. This time, it fought back. On Earth, the scars of war ran deep. Cities rebuilt. Colonies healed. Families mourned the millions who had fallen. But through their grief, humans stood taller. They had faced the greatest empire in history and refused to bend. And the galaxy remembered. On rebel worlds, children carved the word never into stone and metal, a symbol of the day hope returned. Songs were sung of the humans who broke the crown, who defied the overseers, who stood when no one else dared. And in the silent ruins of the Grand Hall, where once all had been forced to kneel, the floor remained empty. No throne. No master. Only the echo of a single word. Never. The galaxy was not safe. It was not perfect. But it was free. And humanity, the stubborn, reckless, unyielding species that refused to bow, had changed it forever. The stars burned on. The Dominion was gone. And a new galaxy had begun.